Hello and welcome to Economic Forum. My name is Tawanda Gudlanga. As Zimbabwe is open for business, we continue interrogating on issues that have an impact on the way of doing business in the country. My guest this week is Mr. Tawanda Collins MUZAMWESE, who is the Executive Director with the Business Council for Sustainable Development, Zimbabwe. And our focus this week is on corporate social responsibility. We explore the true meaning beyond mere philanthropy and address some of the issues that are now considered as global trends. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on your program.
What is it that we call corporate social responsibility?
Thank you very much, Tawanda. I think this is a very important question because there's a lot of misconception out there where companies still need to understand the true meaning of corporate social responsibility. The first thing that I want to mention is that companies do not operate in isolation. You do not work as an island, as an organization. There are a vast array of stakeholders that surround you. These stakeholders could include regulators, government authorities, could include your own employees. There is no company in this world which achieved its goals without its own employees. But also companies, they work within communities. Let's say you are doing mining activities or manufacturing activities. When you do those activities, you are also surrounded by the local communities. So corporate social responsibility looks at how companies satisfy the needs of stakeholders, the expectations of stakeholders. And when we talk of stakeholders, these are people who are directly affected by your economic activity as an organization. It could be in reality, but also some of the stakeholders, they perceive that they are affected by your activities. So we are now seeing companies coming up with corporate social responsibility plans and also having specific individuals designated within companies to run CSR programs. And there are many benefits which are associated with it.
You may talk about benefits, but is it the same as philanthropy and benevolence?
It is not the same. When we look at philanthropy and benevolence, you are just trying to help people in the community and maybe looking at infrastructure alone. But when you look at CSR, it is holistic. You can build a very nice building, you can come up with a very nice road, you can give someone day-old chicks, but at the end of the day, we are saying, is it what they want? Are you meeting a need in that particular community? So CSR looks at the needs of that particular community. Is it what they need? And also, is it sustainable? Sometimes you can build infrastructure, but there is no consideration to say who ran that infrastructure in terms of operation and maintenance.
Let's try and put this into context here. We've always heard of the existence of corporate social responsibility, which now others call as investment. And then we did see during the old dispensation where we used to talk of community share ownership trust schemes, for example. Do they operate under the same sort of arrangement?
Community share ownership schemes, they are also an attempt to also achieve corporate social responsibility, but that is just one aspect of the stakeholders, which is just the community. Because from the idea where it was coming from is to say that we do not want to have companies which are well up. You are in a community driving flashy vehicles. You have got a multi-million-dollar plant, but the people that are in your community are actually living in abject poverty. Millions of people are living below $1 a day. So it is an attempt to then say, can we also have equal benefit sharing with those?
The true story of Zimbabwe and even Africa, because the argument is always that Africa is resource rich, but when we talk about prosperity, we cannot relate to that. So is it a question or an issue of poor corporate social responsibility or non-existence of it?
I would say it's poor corporate social responsibility, because to say none of it exists, I think it would be an injustice. Companies are trying their best. You also need to look at the fact that companies are also trying to survive, to stay on top of the water, their operational cost. They need to meet wages. They also need to be paying basic bills for energy. So in balancing those costs, it's an issue. The other point I want to express is the lack of adequate management commitment. For you to achieve good CSR, you need your top management to be committed. driving CSR from the chief executive officer, driving CSR from the general manager, driving CSR from the managing director. I hope you will understand this saying that fish rots from the head. So any corporate, even if it's a blue chip company listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, if the leadership of that company does not embrace CSR, it is difficult for other employees to follow.
But let's talk about the benefits, because this has always been the excuse, the environment. It is impeding on some of these initiatives such as community, corporate social responsibility. But there are benefits that are always attached to it, unless if you're saying that in Zimbabwe, corporates are not benefiting from CSR initiatives.
There are a lot of benefits which CSR can help companies to achieve. One of the benefits is the license to operate. As a company, you need a license to operate. That license is not given to you formally by the community, but it's an ad hoc and informal permission that you are given by community members. They are cooperating with you. They are giving you the human resource and the labor that you need to be carrying out your activity. You are free from arson activities. But also, we need to talk about the business case to CSR. There are financial benefits. If you implement CSR, for example, some of the environmental objectives of CSR, you can be able to save on your energy. Most companies in Zimbabwe are actually using more energy than they require. You can save on your water consumption. You can minimize hazardous chemicals. Your workforce will be motivated. There will be less injuries and fatalities in the workplace. You know, every day we go to our workplace expecting that we will go back home in one piece. But if you don't embrace issues of wellness, the totality of human health and safety in the workplace, which CSR brings, you are going to be investigating accidents as an organization, but also the issue of getting into foreign markets is now very difficult for you to penetrate foreign markets. If you want to market your products in EU, market your products in Australia, United States, they are demanding sustainability. So if you want to have more money, if you want to increase your market share, if you want to get global, because I'm talking here to different companies, I'm talking to the SME, I'm talking to the large-scale enterprise, I'm talking to the company which is listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, I'm talking to a company which is listed both at home and international.
But can we talk about organizations that fall under the informal sector, SME, as also participants, active participants of CSR?
Yes, some of them are coming up. What is needed, of course, is more awareness in the SME sector. We have seen a lot of large-scale companies being the one participating in CSR. But what we need to do going forward is to increase our numbers in terms of some of the SMEs. You would understand that SMEs right now, they contribute a lot of a chunk to the gross domestic product of developing countries, including also Zimbabwe. So we cannot take them away from this CSR discourse. But of course, we need to appreciate where they are coming from. Some of the emerging small to medium scale enterprises do not have many staff. Some of them are one-man companies. Some of them have not yet formalized. And they are also still trying to make ends meet. So for them to bring CSR, they can see it as a burden financially to their already meager resources. But the way we are going to do it is to then for them to see long-term financial thinking. To say if you are in honey processing, we've got SMEs which are in honey processing, and honey has got high demand, not only locally. How do I make an SME in Mutoko, produce honey which can, end up in Germany, which can end up in Sweden?
With an upsurge in the activity around corporate social responsibility as well as sustainability reporting, how genuine are companies when they do these things? Join us in the second segment. Welcome back. This is Economic Forum, and our focus this week is corporate social responsibility and sustainability reporting. As you know, Zimbabwe is open for business, and of course, there has been a lot of traffic coming into the country from investors, and also commitments to the tune of about $11 billion have been made so far in the 5 months since the coming in of a new dispensation. And with me in the studio is the Executive Director, Business Council for Sustainable Development Zimbabwe, Tawanda Collins MUZAMWESE. Now, as we see this upsurge, we are likely to also see a scenario where companies will certainly make certain claims that they won't be able to fulfill. We've also seen it happening in the diamond sector, where we did find some commitments, promises being made, but today it's the villagers and the communities that seem to be suffering the most. And this practice is known as greenwashing. Can you explain more on this? And is there any evidence that it is happening in Zimbabwe?
Thank you very much. Greenwashing is a situation whereby a company misrepresents information about its sustainability performance. This could be making claims which are not true, or amplifying their claims. I cannot name any company, through this program, but what I want to say is that there is still a lot of work that is needed in terms of the reporting which is coming up in some of the companies. I'll give you an example of how greenwashing can happen. A company can say that they are minimizing waste in their products, or their process is green. But when you actually go into that company in its production process, you see that there are issues to do with hazardous chemicals which are not managed. Sometimes you can amplify claims, and when we talk about corporate social responsibility and greenwashing, I can claim that I have donated a fleet of vehicles to a particular rural clinic or to a particular rural development center. But when you then want to go onto the ground, there's nothing that is happening. So greenwashing is about lying about what you are doing, amplifying what you are doing, or misrepresenting information. And this can also misguide investors, because when investors look at the reports that we are making, they can make decisions. Greenwashing can also be dangerous because the health and safety of communities and the environment of communities, let's say your company generates dust through its production process, there can be serious problems, including respiratory problems, and other complications. And the question is, who is going to be meeting those costs? And this is where we now come to the issue of sustainability reporting as very critical for disclosure. Globally, companies are now being required to disclose their performance through sustainability reporting. I'm very happy to say that in Zimbabwe, we now have got various companies which are now making sustainability.
But these companies are doing sustainability reporting as a way of meeting international standard, or as a way that they're supposed to be complying with the country's laws?
It is both. It is both, and I will explain the two approaches which they are actually doing. You want to understand that some of the companies which are working in Zimbabwe are also listed elsewhere, and also they sell their products elsewhere. So there are demands from the customers there to say, we want you to disclose your performance. Traditionally, companies have been reporting on their financial performance. So a company will just release an annual report. The annual report will just have financials, your basic profit and loss of the organization, your income statements, your balance sheet, your cash flow statements. But what we see now is there's a demand to say, you have made a profit in making this good and service, but what has been your impact on the environment? What has been your impact on society? So a sustainability report, it consolidates your economic performance, it also brings the social performance, it brings the environmental performance, and it covers issues like, how are you dealing with issues of human rights in the workplace? We want corporates in Zimbabwe under this new dispensation which respect workers' rights. There is no company which succeeds without its workers. The workers are the biggest asset of a company. We talk of workplace slavery, which is now a big concept, globally. We are now saying, how do you eliminate child labor in the workplace? I wouldn't want to have a cup of tea where I'm getting the milk from an organization that is using child labor. I wouldn't want to have tea where, the tea leaves are coming from a company that, is using child labor. And these are the demands internationally. The other issue that, sustainability reporting is looking at, you need to disclose your resource consumption, your water consumption, your energy consumption, your emissions. We are living in the day and age of climate change. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, global temperatures will increase by 2 degrees Celsius by 2030 if we continue with the business as usual scenario. So sustainability reporting is asking a company to say, what are you doing to deal with climate change?
But how do you then increase the awareness of the locals in order for them to have, to encourage, sustainable businesses?
There are many approaches which are there already. There are various regulations which have been put in place. The government of Zimbabwe has formulated the Environmental Management Act 2027 of 2003, various statutory instruments on atmospheric pollution prevention, waste management regulations which govern how to manage waste. We also want to talk about gender mainstreaming in our organization. How do we give opportunities to women and girls in the workplace? So we also have got issues that cover regulations with respect to gender, but also awareness and also economic instruments. We need to incentivize companies for them to be doing good, because we cannot just have a stick, but also the carrot is important.
Let's look at the stick and the carrot in the third and final segment of Economic Forum. Welcome to the third and final segment of Economic Forum, where I am talking to Tawanda Collins MUZAMWESE. He's the Executive Director of the Business Council for Sustainable Development in Zimbabwe, as we're focusing on corporate social responsibility and sustainability reporting in Zimbabwe. Now, one would never cease to wonder, because most of the things that you're talking about are either technical or considered bookish or theoretical. But the big question is, how do you then translate these ethos into practical things which communities, consumers, and all stakeholders begin to see on the ground, especially now that we are saying that we're open for business and we're seeing a lot of investors that are coming through?
Thank you very much. I would want to say that impact is very important. When you talk about corporate social responsibility, you can implement an initiative in a community, but if there is no impact, that is a challenge. So we are moving towards a situation where the monitoring and measurement of CSR activities is now very critical, and we need to look at critical indicators. Companies which are advanced, there are examples of companies in the mining sector in Zimbabwe, and also cement producing sector in Zimbabwe, which are already now coming up with a factual approach to CSR and measuring their CSR performance and giving us key indicators. Some of the indicators that we want to see is in a community, how many jobs have you created? Because corporate social responsibility is not just about your image as a company, just for public relations. How many jobs are you creating in the community? You can create jobs directly through the employees that you employ, but you can also create jobs in the value chain through contractors, through suppliers. When we look at women empowerment, we want to say, to what extent have you mainstreamed gender in your production processes? How many women are also running your production process? When we look at the leadership of many companies in Zimbabwe, you will see that it's male dominated. So we are still very far away from the sustainable development goal.
But is there any law that compels a company to be compliant with sustainability reporting mechanisms as well as corporate social responsibility? Is there a law that compels corporates to do that?
There is no specific law that compels corporates to do it, but what I can say...
There's a challenge then.
Yes, what I can say is that we've got various laws which are scattered. Various laws which are scattered in various ministries, and they partially address CSR. So you will not see CSR in one law per se. Let me look at the Labor Act of Zimbabwe, which is very critical. The Labor Act is very clear in terms of ensuring that employers provide freedom of association in the workplace. The Labor Act is very clear to say that employers must make sure that they treat their workers right, and also ensuring that they adhere to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And if there is any termination, it has to be done lawfully. We also have got the Factories and Works Act of Zimbabwe, as well as the Accident Prevention Workers' Compensation Scheme, which is saying that we must promote zero harm in the workplace. No worker should be injured in the workplace, and no worker must die in the workplace.
It looks like all these are premised on moral suasion, and you are the chief persuader, if I may call you that, through this business membership organization, a Business Council for Sustainable Development Zimbabwe, which means you're basically trying to persuade your colleagues or your members, but in actual fact, you cannot do anything in the event that your members breach the concept and the ethos of corporate social responsibility.
This is a very important question. What we are saying is that you eat what you kill. And for everyone who does something that is against CSR principles, should then be able to face the music. You need to understand that the Business Council for Sustainable Development was formed 25 years ago. It's an industry association that promotes sustainability. So we are a voluntary association. We do not have any arresting powers. We do not have any power to come up with any regulation. But what we do, we tactfully work with various government departments and various regulators, including the Environmental Management Agency, the National Social Security Authority, amongst other government ministries, to mainstream some of these things.
But let's understand it from a global perspective, because you've been giving global examples. Are jurisdictions governed by moral suasion when we talk about these issues of sustainability reporting as a requirement, or they are actually compelled to do so by law?
Mm-hmm. In other countries, laws have actually been developed. You would see that in our neighboring South Africa, they've come to a situation where it is now a requirement for you to report, to list on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. In China, they've come up with what we call the cleaner production law, where companies are required to implement cleaner production measures and also report on their sustainability performance.
So why isn't that happening in Zimbabwe?
It is a process to come up with policies. It is a process to come up with regulations. There is need for buy-in of those policies. And also we are looking at a context where companies are going to ask you the question, should I implement CSR? Should I go green first? When I'm faced with operational challenges, when I'm trying to manage the MEAGA budget. So according to the Rio Plus 20 summit in 2012, it was saying that sustainable development should be in the context of poverty alleviation. So these are new concepts coming up, and we need an incremental approach in pushing them, whilst also looking at the context of our country and the context of companies.
Let's look at the context of Zimbabwe now that the president has declared that the country is open for business. So how do we then relate it, especially when we're considering a lot of investment that's earmarked to be coming into the country?
This is very good, and I think our country is now headed for good times with a lot of investment coming in. A lot of deals have already been signed. And what we are saying is that investors are actually...
Do they have sustainability in mind? Have you ever made an assessment to see if they have sustainability in mind?
This is what we are now saying, that those who are looking at investment and those who are also engaging investors, they need to look at, for example, if you want to be constructing a road, if you want to be constructing a shopping mall, are you implementing environmental impact assessment? And when they're also on the ground, we will need to follow up. An investor who comes on board, we will need to follow up with the investor throughout the project life cycle. You understand that a project starts, with your project planning. You come up to construction phase. You come up to implementation, and in some cases, decommissioning. So as a country, when we look at investment, we need to look at it throughout the whole value chain of the project cycle and keep on encouraging each other. There is no company which is perfect. There is no country which is perfect, but we believe that sustainable development is very key for the development of Zimbabwe. Our development cannot be based on a blue economy. it cannot be based on a black economy, but it can only be achieved through a green economy.
Tawanda MUZAMWESE, thank you so much for joining us. My guest was Tawanda Collins MUZAMWESE, the Executive Director of the Business Council for Sustainable Development Zimbabwe, as we're looking at sustainability reporting as well as corporate social responsibility. We've come to the end of the program. For your views, your comments, please do share with us on the numbers and, of course, the WhatsApp platforms that are appearing on your screen. My name is Tawanda Gudlanga. Join us again next week on the program Economic Forum.